Research suggests that by 2027, the global AI-driven content creation market is projected to reach $28 billion, growing at a CAGR of 17.2%. That's not all. With over a billion creators projected by 2030, the creator economy is poised to become a dominant force, transforming industries ranging from entertainment to education. However, according to Adobe, more than 56% of creators believe generative AI is harming creators primarily by training AI models on their work without consent. Furthermore, 44% say they have encountered work online that's similar to their own that they believe was created with generative AI. The Gen AI conundrum is real, and the solution probably lies at the intersection of skills, technology, mindset, and perhaps ethics. Hello, everyone. This is Rajiv Jayaraman, the founder CEO of KNOLSKAPE, and I welcome all of you to another episode of the Learning Curve powered by KNOLSKAPE. And today, to explore the topic of the future of creator economy, I have with me Ankur Mehra, the content economy expert. He's also the author of the upcoming book, Pixels to Profits. Ankur is a prominent voice in the creator economy with 2 decades of experience fostering partnerships between media platforms, content creators, brands, and communities. In his earlier role at Meta, Ankur spearheaded transformative media partnerships for Facebook and Instagram across regions including India, the Middle East, North America, APAC, and Latin America. Previously, as the India country manager for Europe's largest YouTube multi-channel network, Ankur witnessed and contributed to the global evolution of the digital creator landscape. A former EdTech founder and a military veteran, he brings a unique multidisciplinary perspective to his work. Hi, Ankur. Welcome to the Learning Curve.
Thank you very, very much for having me here, Rajiv. And that was one hell of a long introduction. So
I'll need a short break.
Hashtag no pressure.
Absolutely. So, but before we move to the actual discussion, I have a quick rapid fire section for you. Are you ready?
Nobody's ever ready for a rapid fire, but okay.
I have a feeling you're going to ace this. What is the most exciting reason to be a digital creator today?
Freedom of expression, I guess.
Okay, and that runs into a little bit of trouble once in a while. We'll come back to that later.
Of course.
One tool or technology you personally can't live without?
I can't live without, I hate to say this, but the AI chat GPTs and the Claudes and the all the models that are coming there.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's been just, let's say, 2 years, and things have evolved so much that we've become so dependent on.
Yeah, Perplexity, OpenAI,
Right.
all of these are like must-haves now.
Absolutely. And the next one I had is your favorite content creator right now. It could be India, regional, global. Who's your
Yeah,
number?
no, there's this person I know who's really good at creating content, especially in the creator economy. His name is Ankur Mehra. You should give him a follow on LinkedIn.
That's a nice one. Okay. If you could instantly master a skill, what would it be?
I'll again come back to the world in which I come from. Video editing and publishing is something that I've struggled with very diligently for the last few months and maybe more than that. So that's something that I really want to learn as of yesterday, and I've been kind of working on it nowadays.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I often think about. It's, there are a lot of creators out there, but you really need a team around them, right?
Yeah.
The editors, the people who will keep the creators honest on the timelines and so on, right? So, yeah, that's a good point. And the biggest myth about the creator economy.
That large number of followers equals large amount of money. Untrue. Even with a smaller number of followers, you can still make a very, very decent economy, and you can actually create and generate a lot of monetization opportunities, even with a much smaller audience size, say even 5,000 followers. You don't need to have 1 million followers to get $1 million.
Okay, I know this is rapid fire, but what you said right now is gold. So we'll make this a slow fire process. And can you expand on what you just said? How does that actually work? With 5,000 people, how am I still able to monetize? And with a million people, I could still struggle. What sort of
Yeah.
drives that?
So Rajiv, the thing is, like, even if you have, let's say, 5,000 loyal, dedicated, paying followers, that is much better than having a vanity metric of a million followers. And why I say that is because a lot of times many creators, when they start their journey on content creation, they burn out in the middle, thinking that they might not be able to reach, or it'll take a long time for them to reach a wholesome number of a million followers per se. And if they are kind of trending in that direction, but it's taking a lot more time, they tend to kind of burn out and, just drop on the sides. The point I'm trying to make over here is that there is no like magic key to say that if you reach a million followers, then only can you actually make money. Even if you are in the journey, even if you have 5,000, 10,000 followers today, but these are loyal followers, these are ready to pay for you sort of followers, then you're in a much better and a much stronger position, because you don't have to then rely on just ad dollars or brand dollars, but you can actually create, let's say, subscription based models for your own
Right.
self. You can actually do your own newsletter and pick up brands who can actually sponsor your newsletter because they find that the audience is very engaging. Similarly, for podcasts, if you have an engaged audience, brands will be happy to partner with you, even if the numbers are much smaller, because they know that the engagement rates are higher. And apart from the normal regular platforms like the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the TikToks, there are many other platforms that actually give a lot of benefit to creators who have paying subscribers. Platforms like Kajabi or Patreon or even Topmate, which is an Indian startup. These are excellent opportunities, excellent platforms where creators can come in, launch a subscription-based model through which they can do one-on-one meetings with their followers. They can do mentorship sessions. They can even launch coaching. They can launch some training sessions, even with a smaller number of paying followers, which makes it much, much more attractive for a brand to go ahead and partner with these creators, because they know that there's more engagement happening here as compared to somebody who's got a million followers, but barely any engagement. So that becomes a vanity metric that does not hold any water. And that really is just mostly fluff in that sense and doesn't really, attract the brand anymore. We've seen so many recent case studies where brands have actually started to partner more with creators with lesser number of followers than with more. The ROI or the ROAS is much more better when they actually work with with creators with smaller number of followers but more engaged as compared to larger number of followers but less engaged.
Awesome. That's a fascinating response, and I have at least three or four follow-up questions that I could be asking on that answer. But before we do that, for the benefit of our audience, I think it makes sense for us to spend a little bit of time on your experience, personal experience, what got
Yeah.
you here, kind of a story. So, from being a military veteran to an edtech founder, and now you're a thought leader and an upcoming author in the creator economy space. Um, and you seem to have had a pretty diverse career, right? Which I'm sure has shaped your perspective on workforce and what is transforming, and ultimately this creator economy. Can you talk us through what that journey looked like for you?
Yeah, I mean, to begin with, I'm really, really grateful to your point. Yes, I've had a very, very diverse career path. Not many people have that opportunity of working in such different kind of environments. But I'd say that there are three major highlights for this during this entire journey. The first highlight is obviously the time in the army, where when we're talking about the workforce is a very different model that we work over there. It's more kind of disciplined and structure oriented. But the biggest thing that I've learned while I was in the army was the spirit of a team, like esprit de corps. It is not only about how do you lead a team, but it is equally important, if not more, how do you be a part of the team, right? And how do you be a good part of the team? How can you build people along with you while you are a part of a particular team? And then organically you kind of grow, and you grow where you become when you take team leadership positions in the army and all. So I think that is the first and the core pillar of my workforce exposure while I was in the army. And that is something that I really took all my life from there onwards. The second major highlight for me was when I was an edtech entrepreneur. And this was really interesting and amazing because number one, I wanted to work in the skill development space. And when we were back in 2008, 2009, we saw that there are a lot of educated people, but less employable. So if there was a gap between educated and employable, we wanted to fill that gap in through skill development. And so we started this company long time back in 2007 and 8, where we started to work in this particular structure of trying to create a training marketplace, if you may. And that was interesting because as an entrepreneur, again, the big learning for me was that, we wanted to figure out how do we target that skill gap space through leveraging technology. And those were early days. At that time, the apps weren't there. So, I mean, we were all web-based and all, but the key skill I learned over there was to understand how to leverage technology to enhance your own position or use technology to enhance the way that you approach a market and all. And the third key phase for me was when I was at Meta. For the last maybe 10 odd years, I've had the privilege of working in India, working in Singapore, leading the Asia Pacific markets, leading in the US, sitting in the US, leading the North American, Latin America markets and all, and working with the creators. And now these creators are basically, in terms of the workforce model that we were talking about earlier, it was really interesting to see because most of these creators are actually, in a way, entrepreneurs. They are much beyond the content that they are creating. They are small enterprises by themselves, medium enterprises by themselves. They give employment to so many people who are working behind the scenes in getting the content ahead. They are sharp, smart people who are ready to monetize their own expertise in a particular genre that they represent. And they are the most nimble and the most kind of quick-footed people, if you may, in terms of like adopting to new technologies or new changes that a platform has and all those things. So having worked with them, that really changed the perspective for how I would imagine a structured workforce might look like, from where I was coming. So I really felt like over these last couple of decades and working through these very, very diverse sort of experience sets has truly helped me to re-engineer the way I understand what workforce transformation might look like. And for me, every little experience that I've had has been very, very diverse and very different from the previous one, which kind of shifted my focus across in terms of like, how do I see the future of work look like?
Awesome. That's super fascinating. I want to double click on your experience at Meta, where you led multiple
Sure.
media partnerships across regions, and you spoke about Singapore and North American markets and so on. How do you see cultural differences shaping content generation globally? Do you see like patterns that are very popular in the US but not so popular in India or Southeast Asia? Are there cultural differences that you're picking up?
For sure. See, I think the big thing is technology has flattened a lot of things in the way we operate or we use technology, right? It's flattened our access to technology and access to newer ways of content making. But what hasn't changed really is the cultural nuances. Like every region, whether it's India, and within India, again, there are so many multiple markets that we know of, all the language markets, and what we see India in the city of Gurgaon, where I am currently, to maybe 20, 30 kilometers away out of Gurgaon is a different world altogether. And so does the content creation and the content consumption change across the board. So, I mean, and needless to say, obviously, between countries, the distinction is even more stark, and I've had the opportunity of seeing that where we are in India, we are more, say, family oriented or community driven in terms of our content making. In the Western countries where the creator economy is already at a little bit of an advanced stage, if you may, the piece around personal branding and individual narratives is more sort of pronounced in those areas. Also, having said that, the gaps I always feel are kind of are closing in much faster than we would have ever imagined it to have been. And so therefore, if there's something that is trending in the US or in Mexico today, it is not too far away for the trend to catch up in different markets as well.
Right.
But again, having said that, there are sometimes, and it's pretty curious. It's pretty interesting to see that sometimes, there's a trend that's happening in the European markets, for example, but fails to pick up in the Asian market. Because again, because the cultural diversity is so different, and the disparity of cultural nuances is so much that it doesn't really kind of translate into a continuous culture moment over here in the Asian markets also, and similarly vice versa. But having said that, I do feel like there's sometimes, and I talk about it in various forums, but I feel like most of the content that does well checks on three different boxes. One, it is relevant. Number two, it's mostly recent. And number three, it's relatable. So if a content piece kind of checks on these three boxes, it tends to do well across multiple language markets, cultural markets, geographical markets, etc. But oftentimes, our lens changes when it comes to relatability and relevancies specifically. The second major thing that I see across markets, and especially if I was to compare Indian market with any other market, is that Indian market per se is extremely heterogeneous. Like we have so much of a mixed market model over here, even in the same country. Whereas in most of the other countries, if you go to the US, for example, it's mostly similarish sort of content. If you go to UK, it's mostly, if you go to Spain, it's mostly similarish. But India, north versus south, east versus west, everything kind of changes very dramatically when you go across regions and all. So that is the second piece of change that I see. The third piece, maybe, which is very unique to a market like India, is that because we are very language driven or cultural driven markets, very uniquely, India has a model where the micro creators or creators who have got lesser number of followers, let's say 10 to 15,000 followers, they actually tend to do much better than even the big national level creators. And when I say better, it does means in terms of engagement. So like if a smaller creator is putting out piece of content, there is more chances, or the engagement level as per the statistics that I read recently is about 8%. Whereas when you talk about a mega creator making content, their engagement rate is about 1 to 1.52%. Which just kind of emphasizes the point that even if you are small and if you are very nuanced or very culturally kind of segmented in a particular language market itself, you have a much larger and a much more deeper engagement or much deeper fan following in those markets as compared to, when you're trying to have that Uber effect across everybody. And this is a very sort of this is a phenomena that's really very true to India because of our multi-segmented market structures over here. Whereas in the US, for example, or in any other homogeneous markets, whether it's Singapore or whether it's Indonesia, other markets, you always tend to see bigger creators doing much better than the smaller creators. Over here, the narrative kind of shifts a little.
Wow, that's quite an insight. So for the rest of the conversation, I want to anchor the questions around the three C's. The
Uh-huh.
content, the community, and the
Mm-hmm.
commerce part. Right. So we'll start
Okay.
with the content, right? So which you've already touched upon. There are cultural nuances. India is very unique in the sense that micro or nano creators tend to create a lot more engagement, but in a lot of homogeneous markets, maybe the top end of the pool, they walk away with a lot of engagement. So that's great.
Yeah.
So from a content creator's perspective, today there is this challenge, and that's what I started this whole podcast with, right? Getting back to the data points that I had shared at the start of the podcast, a significant percentage of creators believe that Gen AI is harming them, mainly due to unauthorized training of their work, and AI is while some argue that AI is simply another tool, much like Photoshop or a video editing software, others see it as a direct threat to human creativity. And in fact, I read somewhere that today there are influencers out there that are AI created, but you can't tell. And there are a bunch of followers for those people as well, right? I'm referring to them as people, but really they are AI characters. So, where do you stand on this debate? How do you think platforms and policymakers can ensure fair attribution and compensation for content creators?
Well, this is a topic which I don't think there could be a straight answer to this. It's a very gray space right now. There is no like I don't think there's a position that anybody can take at this moment because it's too early in the day to figure out where that might lead us to. Having said that, I do feel like AI is definitely here to stay and is here to disrupt the markets as we go move ahead. Now, when it comes to the creator economy per se, I feel like this is a moment of almost an existential crisis for creators. Because to your point, if you have a AI based, AI generated content creator who looks, feels, talks, behaves like a human being, then then we are at a disadvantage. Human beings are at a disadvantage because this person can do 20 shoots in a day. This person can be to 20 different locations in a day. This person does not grow old. This person can always look handsome and
Right.
beautiful wherever, whenever, whichever time of the day they might be at. So, I mean, there is no comparison. It becomes a very uneven playing ground, right? But at the same time, a lot of, and I mean, we are just talking about AI generated images at the moment, but frankly, what I'm also seeing nowadays, and very recently there was this video about a humanoid doing the first unboxing video.
Right.
So I mean, now you have humanoids coming in, and then you have synthetic human beings coming in. So there seems to be a lot more advanced level of characters that will keep coming up. And therefore, I feel like this is so important as a time in space for creators to identify what their true niche is and make sure that they are getting as close to their followers, to their fans, as to the community as they can, while we still have their runway on themselves. You know, even though AI will be very pervasive in the days to come, but I do feel like the unique advantage of creators would be the authenticity that they will bring to their communities. If they are in a position to be, to be true to what they are saying, to be true to the message that they're trying to give to the communities, and doing it in a very authentic, empathetic manner, I think that's a space that the AI will not be able to breach. You know, I also feel that we need to be, I can't say that we need to be smarter than the machines because that's really not possible. Frankly, I mean, from a realistic point of view. But I guess the way to do a better job using AI is to leverage technology to do more scalable jobs. Say, for
Right.
example, when we talk about content, there is always this hero, hygiene, and hub sort of content, right? So, hub content is basically content that everybody does almost every day, sort of like you do a regular post on a day-to-day basis. That can be outsourced to an AI model, for example.
Okay.
Then there is the more sort of content pieces that you make once in a week or once in 10 days, which is sort of more has higher level of resonation with your audiences. That is a content that you can partly outsource to an AI model. But then there's the hero content. The hero content is where you truly come, let's say, once in 20 days in front of your audiences and give it your all, give it that one personality sort of content to your audiences. And that I think should be still with the creator themselves, because that is when they tend to bring their true authentic self to their communities. And leveraging AI in the ways of letting AI answer a lot of queries or a lot of comments that are coming in. Those are the things you can still outsource to AI. But frankly, I believe where the empathy point comes in, or when the authenticity comes in, is where one should maintain a creator to maintain that first touch point with their own community. I think that's something that I don't see that changing in the near future, in the midterm future, and that's something that we should be, as individuals, as human beings, be able to kind of have an upper edge on. And having said that, I do feel like um, the way to also understand if we can leverage AI better is because it helps us to kind of get more kind of broad based in terms of our own data analytics and understanding of our own audiences. And that is something that as creators, one should really deep double dive on to try and see, where are those data points which, were not available earlier, but can now be available because of technology, and use it to the best optimum use. That's how I feel where we are at the moment. If we try to compete with them on the synthetics, then we are probably not in the right arena. but we've got to not compete, but complement, use it as a complementary advantage to ourselves, and bring that authenticity and the emotional angle or the human angle more profound, more proactively in front of our community. Get more in touch with your community rather than maintaining an arm's distance from your community at this point.
Awesome. So I was going to touch upon this one. You know, Nullscape is an organization that focuses on future skills, right? We are
Yeah.
into skill building. So from that perspective, you've worked with the best content creators out there, and probably you've come across a bunch of people who want to make it, but they don't probably have the right skills. Content, unique perspective, maybe they do have that, but there is a need for other skills. The way you spoke about the ability to look at data, to look
Mhm.
at certain trends. Am I able to understand my audience better, right? So that's a different ball game altogether, right? Not all content creators have that mindset, right? So
Mhm.
from that perspective, what do you see some of the best people do, right? The additional skills that they have, the ability to understand the
Yeah.
algorithm. To your earlier point, you're also in a way gaming the algorithm to gain traction, right? What are those meta skills that people need to have to sort of rise above the
Yeah.
clutter?
See, I think first thing first, as a content creator, and you're right, have had a chance to work with a lot of creators and across the spectrum of creators, right? So they have been micro creators to mega creators, and also across multiple language markets and multiple country markets. One thing that I've seen the best creators do from the rest of the creators is that the best creators think of themselves as a business. They are on constantly looking at the numbers, looking at the business model, trying to see what's working and resonating most with the audiences. And if something is not working, they don't feel shy of kind of cutting it off. They are ruthless in terms of prioritizing what is right for the business, and not anything else is just noise for them. So even though I might be, let's say, for example, a podcaster who is really passionate about, doing a 1 hour podcast every week, and I feel like that is my way of kind of resonating with my audiences. But if my, let's say, data points were to reveal something else, maybe I should forget about doing a podcast, because that's not something which I feel is resonating, but is not actually resonating on the ground, and pivot to something which is more useful for the audiences. So rather than getting emotional about your product or about whatever you're bringing out in the market, it's more important to understand what the vibe of your audience is and trying to be ruthlessly prioritizing that over anything else. So that's something that I've seen most of the big and the better creators do. They do a lot of deep dives, and not only do they do a lot of deep dives, but they also, like, you make a piece of content, you do the postmortem of the content, you try and see what the how the content is performing in the first week, to the 14-day plan, to the let's say even the 20-day plan. And if you find some key learnings and takeaways, use them and move on, rather than just mulling over it and stretching over it and thinking about, okay, maybe let's give it 5 more tries to see how that works and all. So that's really, you're losing a lot of competitive advantage in that sense. And the other thing I've seen a lot of better creators do is that they have a very strong they 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 have a very strong approach to leveraging technology. And by technology, I mean not only just AI, but also a lot of, let's say, platforms that provide them help on editing, or content generation, or anything that really helps them to get better at their craft. They don't feel shy of taking help from technology and making and refining their model better. So that's the other piece that I've always seen them do. And the third thing is a very, very open, humble, and a learning mindset.
Right.
There's a sense of collaboration. Like, even if you are today a big creator, but if you get a chance to collaborate with somebody who's smaller than you, I've seen a lot of better creators being very open about that sort of collaboration, and having that learning mindset, always on, to understand that maybe that the other partner that they're working with brings something on the table which
Yeah.
maybe they did not have, or they have been overlooking themselves and things like that. So I think that kind of mindset has been very, very, very effective for them, where it's a very open-ended, open learning sort of a mindset, plus at the same time very collaborative and ready to kind of grasp what they can from any side.
Awesome. So far we've been talking about the content, and it's been so rich. Thank you so much, Ankur, for such great insights. Now I want to focus on the community aspect, right? So,
Mhm.
and from my vantage point, the way I look at this is it's a double-edged sword, right? You need to be authentic, right, to your earlier point, and that's what gets you the audience. But this can also lead to self-expression in a way that can lead to what we see as cancel culture, right? And suddenly you see all your
Mhm.
subscribers vanishing overnight. So, what do some content creators do to engage their community? What is the art and science of community engagement?
Yeah, I see. We in India have seen a recent case, a recent example of how a very, very famous creator probably did not read the pulse of his own community. You know, I think what matters right now, and more than ever, actually, in a world in which we are moving, is like, and I always keep saying this, that we've moved on from that traditional or the, the OG sort of social media where creators would make content and people, I would follow a Rajiv and, I will see whatever content you're making and I'll engage with you. I think that world is moving on very fast. What we do now is we open our phones and we keep on scrolling up. Um, and more than 80% of the time, we don't even see the content from the people we actually follow. As a community, as a consumer, I keep on scrolling and maybe I'll just see maybe Rajiv one or two reels coming in because there's so much of clutter on the platform right now that it is more of an entertainment platform rather than a social media platform anymore. And so, therefore, it's more important than ever for a creator to get close to their community, to make sure that they value their content more than otherwise just brain rot scrolling through and all.
Yeah,
So, having said that, number one, when a creator is working with a community, more often than not, and that kind of brings me back to my earlier point as well. Why do niche or why do smaller or why do
right.
micro creators do better? Is because they understand the pulse of the community. They understand what is it that they stand for and what is the community expecting from them, and are able to kind of bring this back to the community, right? So if you're completing that loop of fulfilling the expectations versus what you're giving out, it really makes that relationship a very viable and a strong relationship. So that's one. The second thing is, I feel like, and it's often said, I mean, Spider-Man's uncle said it, with great power comes great
But
responsibility,
that's right.
right?
Yes,
So I think a creator must understand that at the end of the day, they're championing their community. So while it's good to be there as a person who's leading the community or being the voice of the community or championing your community, but it also comes with high amount of accountability. So as long as you're accountable and true to your community and coming back and saying that, what, I'm trying this, or why don't you support me while I'm doing this, or hey, I'm sorry I messed up here, but I can do this better in that way. As long as you have that one-on-one communication with your community, big or small, whatever that might be, that really makes a lot of difference. And one small way of doing that is, as much as possible, as creators, try to answer all the comments that your community have
right.
has on your video assets. Don't leave it for just don't leave it unattended, even if it's a small thank you, whatnot. Please go in there and reply back to your community because it really makes a difference to somebody who's
Right.
watching your content and sees you engaging with them. um, and the third thing, however, is that most of the communities that operate, or um, most of the communities that creators have, there's a level of fans and there's a level of core fans within this community. So one is the fans, the outer layer of your fan circle, where they are happy to watch your content, they are window shopping with you, they like what you have to say, but they'll still move on to next. But then there's a core group of your fans, which is the true fans, as many people call them. And these are the most loyal fans. It's most important to take care of these because this is the core nucleus of your community, and that really extends by word of mouth, and they become your actual network, which actually takes you further. So that is where you want to engage with them, and that kind of I feel is a better way when you move away from the major platforms. You keep the major platform personalities over there, but you move beyond those 4 or 5 big platforms and come to smaller platforms like I was talking about the Patreons and the Kajabis and the Top
Right.
Mates, and try to engage with your core fans in these platforms. Number one, you're monetizing better. And number two, you really get to understand what is it that the core fans really look forward from you. That gives you a sense of an advantage over just having a one size fits all sort of an approach. So I think that's the third takeaway that I would really give for creators who want to engage deeply with their communities.
Awesome, quite comprehensive. Thanks for that. Now I want to shift over to commerce, right? How
Mhm.
the monetization aspect actually works. So I heard somewhere that hardly 1% of all the content creators actually are able to monetize in a way that is able to sustain them, right? From a livelihood perspective, right? I'm not talking about millions of dollars, but just sustainable livelihood. And that leaves us with 99% of the folks who are probably disillusioned. They know
Yeah.
there is something here, but they produce a lot of content, but they don't get the level of engagement, and the commercial aspects don't end up happening either, right? So how do you make sense of this, right? Why is it so steep in terms of the long tail, right? What goes behind the scenes there?
Yeah, I think most of the creator economy is kind of simplified. I mean, it's very simple in the sense that the core nucleus or the core reasons are the ones which kind of lead to a ripple sort of a network effect, and many things sort of start to have that, start to fall across the board. So similar to, let's go back to the point of what we were talking about earlier, that social media platforms have become more like an entertainment platform now, where folks are just continuously moving up, up, up. And when you're doing that, then you're not engaging with any one piece of content, or you're not spending time on any one piece of content, or any one piece of or any one creator or something, which leads to lesser sort of engagement with a particular creator. Most of the platforms are incentivized to to keep the audiences on the platforms by increasing the watch time, and they are able to increase the watch time when they have a lot of new content in front of the which matches the attention economy of that particular consumer. And at the end of the day, we realize that because there's so much of content mess that's happening over there, and individuals are not engaging with any piece of content but are just continuously mindlessly scrolling up, the true losers are actually the creators.
Yeah,
Because eventually you are building a lot of content, you're trying to engage, but it's a very difficult world to engage with when they don't have the attention spans, you know?
right.
So it's very difficult, therefore, for them to start building up their subscriber bases and to start building up their network and start building up their credibility. And especially in a world in which we live, Rajiv, when there is no barrier to entry, it's a
Yep.
zero barrier to entry. Anybody can be a creator. If you've got a phone, you are a creator, period. I
Right.
mean, you can tend to be a Gen Z or a Gen Alpha or a millennial or a boomer, whoever could you be, but you can actually be a content creator at the moment right now. So if there is nothing that's stopping you, and you all have a story to tell, and everything, and the platforms are trying to encourage as many people to come in as content creators because that will hold on the eyeballs onto the platform, then we are talking about a very sort of a very noisy sort of a marketplace,
Yeah.
and that's not to anybody's advantage, in the long run. And that is why a lot of creators struggle to build a decent sized kind of community around them. And when they are building content and they are putting in their money and their effort and their time, and they probably left their jobs and are doing this on the side, it's really difficult for them to start making economy out of it. And that is when they start, the disillusion starts to kick in, and they start to feel like, what, they've wasted 3 years of their life building content, haven't gone anywhere, haven't made a lot of money, and then they start to burn out, and it all comes back. Then they start going back into the job world or wherever they might be. Eventually it's not leading to anybody's benefit. And one of the reasons I feel, that's why I say that most of the creators should start to identify that content creation is just the starting point. It doesn't have to be the end point for them. They should
Yeah.
start with them, pick up whatever little community they have, even if they have a smaller community. It's good if you've made it big and have a very strong engaged community. But even if you don't, pick up whatever core followers you have, and wait on, figure out what is it that your community wants from you, hear them out. Maybe they want you to write a newsletter and they will probably engage better with you on there. Or maybe they want you to, start doing mentoring sessions, or they want you to write a book, or they want you to do a coaching, training academy for them or something like that. Listen to the voice of your community and start pivoting to those business models rather than just ending up content creation one after the other, without really getting the sort of the result and the rewards that you were expecting to get when you started to begin doing that. So I think it's important that you reset yourself, take the pivot in between, continuously assess where your model is at, where you are at on that growth curve, and then figure out if you are still doing well as a content creator, keep doing that, or start reducing your effort in content creation, start doing something else on the sides, and do content creation as and when you need to kind of touch back with your community.
Right.
But don't make it like your heart and soul, because I was reading sometime back, there was this lady who spent about 8 lakh rupees on a YouTube channel, and something like 3 or 4 years or something. And then she's like, it has just completely been a waste of my time and effort and money, because I've wasted 8 lakh rupees and 4 years of my life and I haven't got anything back, So, I mean, that's maybe content. And she was something, she was, her genre was food. So if she may have thought about it, I don't know what her real examples was, situation was, but I'm assuming that, or I'm just trying to kind of extrapolate from there to say that maybe if you were to hold back, see that maybe my videos aren't doing well, but maybe my recipes are. So is there a way to monetize my recipes by sending
Right.
out, I don't know, in mailers to people, sending out a newsletter to folks, finding out other ways to engage with your audiences, not necessarily just content creation, because it's becoming costly anyways. Um,
Right.
and that's why I feel like from a creator perspective and a commerce perspective, it is so important to identify those other areas of revenue or monetizations. Like we were talking about earlier, best of the best creators think of it like a business. If this is not working, shut this vertical off. Think about another vertical. You know, I think that's where the core of the whole model might be.
Awesome, Ankur. And I'm really excited for you about the book, Pixels to Profit. So, can you share
Yeah.
a little bit about the central thesis of the book and what prompted you to write this?
Yeah, no, for sure. Why I started to write this was because, like we had spoken earlier, I had a chance to work with so many hundreds of thousands of creators across so many multiple language markets and country markets, that I felt that there was, and I saw the transition, right? When I started my career, it was with traditional media at that time after the army. So I could see the transition of the media from a traditional gatekeeping, traditional model company, which is, a television based model, to the new media, to the digital media, and to where we are right now, which is a creator economy led media. And over this transition, I saw that there were more changes that have happened in the last 3 to 4 years than have happened in the last maybe 100 years in the in
Yeah.
the in the media space and all. And that's when I started to kind of dawn on me that maybe I should start documenting what's been happening in the creator economy and where will the creator economy head on to in the next maybe 3 to 5 years. So basically mapping the entire journey from the origins of what media was to where we are today to going forward where might be in the
Nice.
future is where the journey of the book is. And within which I have also, like, since you asked about the core fundamental framework of the book, I call it the 5C framework. And 5C framework is my take on simplifying the creator economy, because Raji, frankly, a lot of people speak about the creator economy sitting on the
Right.
sidelines. Very few people get it. So the idea was to simplify the concept of the creator economy through the 5C framework, within which the first C is the creator, which is the heart and soul of the creator economy. The second C is the collaborator or the brands, who pay
Okay.
brand dollars. The
Right.
C3 is the channels. Channels are, platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatnot. The fourth C is something we spoke about just now, is the commerce. Like, how
Yeah.
is it that people can make money beyond just ad dollars and brand dollars? What is it that you can do other than that? So we spoke about a lot of things today.
Yeah.
And the fifth C is the community angle or the consumer, people like you and me who are consuming,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Right.
So from where I see it, I see that all of these five C's are interacting and transacting within each other, and that's what the creator economy is, right? And then out of this, the other key takeaway for me has been that see a lot of big brands like a Nike or Adidas, they know what they're doing already. They know which creators they have to work with, which influencers they have to work with, etc. But what about that brand that you went to the mall maybe last evening and you saw there was this upcoming fashion brand in the mall, they had a small shop. They don't have the money to pay to the agencies to do a full blown ad on the television. But do they have the money to work with a small and medium creator? Yes. Do
Yeah.
they have do will they get a better bang for the buck if they were working with those small and medium creators? Definitely yes. But
Yeah.
they do it right now? They don't, you know. So how can small businesses work with small and medium creators, and how can that marriage happen? That is the other aspect that the book really talks about. It doesn't mean, like, to our earlier point, you don't have to necessarily wait for a Coca-Cola to come to you and give you that brand dollars. Even if you're earlier in your curve, even if you are a smaller or a medium-sized creator, you can still generate revenues for yourself by working with smaller brands, small and medium enterprises,
Right.
startups. And there is a model, there is a world that is waiting to be explored over there. So why aren't we going there? So, that is the space that the book also kind of touches upon. And there are many other pieces of information in the book. For example, we spoke about, the why does some pieces of content do better than some other pieces of content. We spoke about the 3R concept, the relevancy, recency, and relatability model. So the book will talk a little bit about that as well, talk a little bit more deep into what makes a
Right.
content more, highly resonating with some other pieces of content. And other concepts, like we use the term creator and influencer very fluidly, but is there a
Yeah.
difference between a creator and an influencer? Probably
Yeah.
yes. So what is
Yeah.
that? So those kind of concepts are
Wow.
also there in
Okay.
the book. Yeah, and I hope that it'll, if nothing else, it'll open the doors for more people to understand what the creator economy is. Those people sitting on the fence thinking whether they should jump in, make their first piece of content or not, this book can actually help them take that more informed sort of a plunge into the creator economy, if you may. And even for small businesses, small and medium businesses, they've been sitting on the fence far too long thinking how should they crack or how should they get a deal with a smaller creator. Well, this book might actually help you get that.
Awesome. I can't wait to read the book. When is it coming out for our listeners and viewers here? I'm sure they are looking forward to grabbing a copy as well. When is the book coming out?
Yes, the pre-orders are already open right now. And the book is releasing on the 24th of March. So just on the couple of weeks. And
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's called Pixels to Profits. Please go on Amazon, make your pre-orders if you can. And otherwise, it'll be in stores on the 24th onwards.
Super stuff, and good luck to you, Ankur, on the success of this book. And it's been a
Thank you.
fascinating conversation. I wish we had, budgeted a longer session with you because there's so much learning to be had from this conversation. And in the spirit of learning, I want to conclude our podcast with this question: what's that one thing that you've learned in the last year? Something new that you've learned.
I have, okay, yeah, I've learned how to write a book.
And it is
You know,
an art and a science in itself. Yeah, it's a good one.
and apart from that, yes, I've had a chance to get out of my own comfort zone. I've mostly been a writer. I've mostly been writing posts on LinkedIn and my own newsletter on LinkedIn and all. But this is for the first time now that I'm starting to go into the video journey myself
Right.
onto different platforms. So yeah, that's another skill that I'm starting to develop now. I'm starting to work on it. Let's see how that goes.
Awesome. Good luck to you on that. And thank you so much, Ankur, for this lovely chat. The insights and experiences you've shared with us in this episode is something I'm sure the viewers and listeners will find great value in and they'll learn a lot from. So, really happy that we've had this chat. And thanks to all the viewers and listeners for tuning in to the Learning Curve. We shall be back in the next episode with another great personality and insights on making organizations, leaders, and the workforce ready for the future. Until next time, take care and goodbye.